there were 10 of me. Even if you had a century to prepare, you'd still be looking up for a god like it's meant to be there. Broken symmetry, force decode with rogue telemetry. Continue to go with the flow of entropy though. Yeah, it's different, a threat to uniformity. Existence was better when it was orderly. Broken symmetry, force decode with rogue telemetry. Continue to go with the flow of entropy though. Yeah, it's different, a threat to uniformity. Existence was better when it was orderly. Blaze the freshest, the space we stay in is asymmetric. Explore the decay with ancient methods. I came to wreck it, force feeding you physics within it. I wanna go far beyond entropy limits. Overload your sensory inputs. Throw bars a ridiculous distance from the pillars of wisdom. A long tradition of strong predictive songs of interest where only the facts belong in sentence. Symmetrically appealing though, I'll wreck it with this feeling from the get-go to the ceiling with flows so precarious and arrogant. Lifted with the areas, but condemned cause I spit about invariance. Test me and compete. You and your chief can both lay with the dead deities in my feet. We're just the finite seeking infinite life as we soar through space at a percentage of light. Broken symmetry, force decode with rogue telemetry. Continue to go with the flow of entropy though. Yeah, it's different, a threat to uniformity. Existence was better when it was orderly. Broken symmetry, force decode with rogue telemetry. Continue to go with the flow of entropy though. Yeah, it's different, a threat to uniformity. Existence was better when it was orderly. Stone.
The only thing that's permanent is the state of impermanence. So many aren't aware of this and think that they can swerve from it. The nerve of them, the other hubris is kinda humorous. The stupid does the exact opposite of the studious. Less of biological units, nothing but specks to me of momentary interest in stored in a directory. Their entire species history makes up a fragment of my memory. I've forgotten more than they will ever be. They think so linear, our thoughts are never similar. The things they think are massive are to me a small perimeter. So everything around them eventually has to pass away. Their closed system slowly succumbing to forces of decay. Universal deconstruction leads to everything's destruction. Thoughts of stopping the cycle will only start to be corrupted. To me it means nothing, I'm jumping from this universe, returning to the void and on the hunt for something new to search.
Broken symmetry, force decode with rogue telemetry. Continue to go with the flow of entropy though. Yeah, it's different, a threat to uniformity. Existence was better when it was orderly. Broken symmetry, force decode with rogue telemetry. Continue to go with the flow of entropy though. Yeah, it's different, a threat to uniformity. Existence was better when it was orderly.
Yeah.
Grand Unified. Low technology.
What? LTGU. Preclusion of the imitation is what we do. White belt and seafood. Graphite the binary sequel. This is what's expected from elite groups. So you can count us out, we like that. Lyrically and mentally prepared, we fight back. A runaway train on the right track. A light brain snatch the mic back and we might snap.
Betrayal is heinous, pray you don't detain us. Laced with razor blades, nameless people in the faceless. A holocaust is all it costs when you don't get along. So call it off and figure it out, I'm looking at all y'all. I'm demented, intrinsic, highly optimistic. Follow me down cause they've announced that you've already been evicted. Stay in your place, configured to fit the picture. I messed it up and now I've traced the wobble to this fixture. All it takes when placed in a firefight is higher might and knowing you could die for a flyer life. Set aside, there's a chance when you walk that your very next step could end it all on a sunken mine. Duck in time cause luck isn't on your side. I'm busted up well enough to know that I'll swell up in kind. You don't wanna wrap your brain around this line cause I'll accidentally hang you with this rhyme.
What? LTGU. Preclusion of the imitation is what we do. White belt and seafood. Graphite the binary sequel. This is what's expected from elite groups. So you can count us out, we like that. Lyrically and mentally prepared, we fight back. A runaway train on the right track. A light brain snatch the mic back and we might snap.
I had a storm, dire born minus the form. Vying for more until we die in the war. My guys are on par with the strength of Leviathan calls. A Gatling gun that fires hydrogen bombs. Our lyrics assemble as fractals amass. Half of its mass will crack a planet in half. I'm trying to comprehend non-linear temporals, while at any given time it could open up a portal. Mind offensive with truth, while your side is pretending. Show your life is a recurring loop. Science, forgive me. We dare you to speak our catalog. Trigger catastrophe if even a fraction of. Splatter galactic walls. The plan involved was leave you in fantastic awe. 3 intellects in one body. Douglas Sagan, Asimov. On the break beat, I craft love like HP. Get existential horrors from the depths when you face me.
What? LTGU, preclusion of the imitation is what we do. White belt of seafood, graphite to binary sequel. This is what's expected from elite groups. So you can count us out, we like that. Lyrically and mentally prepared, we fight back. A runaway train on the right track. A light branch snatch the mic back and we might snap. Renegade scholars raid towers, evade cowardice. Victims detained remain powerless. Hope surfers are formatted for inhabitants, lurking for pure advantages in the grand abyss. Quick to bail right before you scale. Your goals impaled by neurotic blows you throw yourself. Critical breakthroughs if you scan a few. More expansive view. All remain a frantic rat subdued. Monk wizards amongst pillars. Blunt instruments landed upon gut fillers. Intimate dinners with figured winners. Convince every script has a system of rendered vigor. Your trend will die as we vie for immortality. To buy the luxury of time mining faculties. Great descendants for my type to pay a visit. Reshape the lenses. We chip away until the cadence fits it. What? LTGU, preclusion of the imitation is what we do. White belt of seafood, graphite to binary sequel. This is what's expected from elite groups. So you can count us out, we like that. Lyrically and mentally prepared, we fight back. A runaway train on the right track. A light brain snatch the mic back and we might snap.
Understanding risk management. Calculate before you pay the price, it gets scandalous. Exert influence just to show the mid's immense. Intense suspense got you jumping from your picket fence. Picture what we'll do to tenants when they're late with rent. Same thing we do to rappers that don't want to pay their debt. Inject intelligent bars for intellectual cause. Minor flaws to reach applause, no cheats involved. Rap guys get chastised for the bad lies. Mad cries inside, such a sad vibe. Analyze and see the side that you mask disguise. Categorize with the illest masters on the rise. Accelerate rapidly, no competition. Do we get our recognition? Y'all decision. Poor choices lead to false gimmicks. So no, we won't conform across image. Lyrics is poisonous arsenic.
Hopefully everybody's doing well out there on this Saturday evening. Man. So much to talk about. So much to norch about. Yeah, we're doing after hours. We just did office hours. I was in the office literally all day today. Even though I didn't stream, I was right here. So. And this is the first time I've norched up in hours, so I'm really gonna enjoy this. Really gonna enjoy this. Oh yeah. Sometimes the joints just have to be perfect. So if you see the thumbnail, says let's talk about UFOs. And over the last couple of days, there's been a lot of scuttle, if you will, about the Trump UFO disclosure files. And so I hadn't really talked about that since it came out. It's still pretty fresh. And I'm not on some like ambulance chaser type shit. Like personally, news is news, comes in cycles, whether it's relevant to me or not. It's like, you know, it is what it is. But because I've often talked so much about space and time and, you know, astral phenomena and things like that, I thought it'd be fitting for me to jump on here and sort of give my 2 cents. I do have a video that I plan on watching. It's a video by someone on here named Trip and Whatnot. And I saw this video, and I thought it was very relevant to what I wanted to talk about tonight. But I want to frame this and preface this by sort of talking about something else that is kind of related, but it's kind of related. It is, I'm not going to say not really, it's kind of related, but not directly. So don't forget to hit that like button, hit that share button, share it wherever you can. I would greatly appreciate that. Every little bit helps. We are going to get norched up. You know, sometimes we just got to roll the perfect joint and maybe just have it to where it's just fire. Look at that. Perfect. Single carb filter, which you guys know how I feel about that. I don't really like the single carbs, but just for the sake of, that was the only filter that I found that was worthy of salvaging. My doubles and triples were just completely shot. So I am going to be watching this video, probably going to watch it in a little bit. Maybe we can get into the double digits and things like that. But this particular video is by this gentleman right here. And I think the video says something like UFO warning for Christians. And you guys know, I'm not a Christian. I've obviously been critical of persuasive religions and Judeo-Christian lineage. A mouthful. Big ditty. But it is interesting because I have brought up this topic. It's a particular topic, like I said, that's related indirectly to this topic. But I appreciate it. Thank you, May. Yeah, is this a 10 out of 10? Is this an A plus? Does that Swedish judge give me higher than a 7 for this? Fucking asshole. But anyway, so this topic, this UFOs topic, it's related to something else I was talking about, which is a question that I asked, which is, what technology or secret would, if it came out, be so profound, so compulsive, so world-breaking, that it would break society overnight? What technology, what secret, what information would most of the world literally just sit down and be like, all right, we ain't doing shit else until we figure this shit out? What secret could the Vatican have? What technology could a government have that would make the entire world sit up and say, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to work. I'm not paying no taxes. No, the only thing I'm doing is following this trail to wherever it leads. Right? Now, I brought up a couple of things. None of this was aliens, by the way. None of this was aliens. But the thing that I brought up, which was something that has been in conspiracy theory circles for quite some time, is something known as the chronovisor. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but the chronovisor. Chronovisor is this supposed technology that, if true, if it exists, allows people to verify with 100% accuracy events in time. Now, specifically the one I was talking about is the chronovisor that documents or is able to verify events from the past. But I have heard of different takes of this technology, different takes on the tale, that it can see forward in time as well. It can see alternate timelines as well. And it can see into maybe some alternate dimensions, or whatever the case may be. Again, I'm not saying that this is true. I'm simply offering that this would be a type of technology that would break the world. And the reason why, in my opinion, would be something very simple as all lies are invalid. All lies would be invalid overnight. No more lies. If you lived in a world where no one could lie, if you lived in a world where there was no lying, we could just look through this lens and see exactly what you did when you did it, because there is a temporal record of it. Now, I don't know if there's anything in physics that prevents observations of time from another point in time. I don't know what the energy requirements of that are or anything like that. I don't even know if it's allowable within our understanding of GR and, you know, quantum theory. Putting all that aside, if it exists, in my opinion, that's technology that would break the world. And I've heard a couple of other things, right? Big Norch. I've heard a couple of other things. Time travel, new energy physics, several things, right? And of course, I couldn't name them all. I only named the one that I thought of, and there's a couple of other ones. But it goes back to this idea of what would break the world. What would literally be so ontologically shocking that it breaks the world. Elaine, how you doing? Are you the Clambassador? So again, I go back to this idea of the premise of the question is, what is the technology that is so profound that it would break the world? What is the secret that it would break the world? Keyword breaks the world. So why do I bring that up? I don't know if I even put aliens in that conversation, in that category of, if the world finds out about this, it breaks the world. I don't even know if I put aliens in that conversation. But we're about to have that conversation. We're definitely about to live in the timeline where we have a legitimate conversation about non-human intelligence and extraterrestrial life. Lord Entropy, what's up, dog? You ain't trying to get in this conversation, are you? So, of course, you guys are probably familiar, if you haven't sort of been living where I live, which is under a rock, and I still found out about it. But the Trump administration and the Department of War basically began releasing documents that are the first in a volley of files on UAPs and UFOs. So we're going to watch a video today. But there's a particular, I don't know, specificity in the conversation that's being had right now. Right? If you want to jump in your office, I can jump in with you, or even the bridge. But basically, right now there's a couple of narratives going on. And one of those narratives is that there was a meeting, or several meetings, actually. I'm hearing there was at least two, of high profile religious leaders, specifically Christian, who were brought together to have a conversation about the ramifications of disclosure. Damn, I'm good with words. So, this meeting takes place, and then we start hearing about it. And what we hear is that in this meeting, there were people who had been briefed on disclosure and basically said in no uncertain terms that if you are a pastor or a leader of a faith, you need to prepare your congregation for the ramifications of the information to come. What? I'm not a Christian, and that made me sit up. Again, information to break the world. We'll get to that. But the question is, who was at this meeting and who was talking about this? This didn't happen in an official capacity, but I'm assuming that somebody who was read in, or at least have some form of clearance to be read in on something that knows what's coming from the current administration, I would argue that they were at that meeting. And I'm pretty sure that meeting went something like this. Hey, I know you guys are leaders of faith of congregation, and I'm sure you have people who really, really trust you in a spiritual way. The ontological ramifications of the information that's about to come out, you should probably prepare your congregation for, because you're going to get a lot of questions that you may not be able to field with just the Bible. Again, I'm not a Christian. However, that would make me sit up. That did make me sit up. I have another theory. This is not technology, it's information. Information that would break the world. I don't know if it would break the world. It might. What if this world was older than we were told? Many people in the religious, be very specific, in the Judeo-Christian religious faith believe, not all, but generally, that the world is somewhere between 6,000 and, a couple 100,000 years old at the most. What if we had irrefutable evidence, irrefutable proof that the world was a lot older, that humanity was a lot older than we were told, than mainstream science and history had allowed us to believe? And in that gap of history, an event took place, or things took place that they had evidence for, that would upend the current belief system of about 3 billion people on planet Earth. That's almost half. I think there's 8 billion people on Earth. Let's say, what is there, 2 billion Christians? Somebody fact check me on that. What is there, 2 billion Christians? Yeah, and to Tombstone's point, I'm literally sort of leading up to that point. But if there was a missing 150,000 years in the human archaeological record, which people like Graham Hancock talk about this, Billy Carson talk about this, and in that historical period, there was things that, again, completely invalidates the biblical record, the historical record, the mainstream understanding of where humans come from record, the evolutionary record. Let's say there's information in that period of history that does that. I think there is consequences to that. 2.6 billion Christians. That's almost 3 billion. That's over 2.5 billion Christians. Not to mention all of the faiths that are related to Christianity. I don't even know if we count Catholicism in that number or if Catholicism has its own number, but let's just assume Catholicism is in that number, just because if it's larger than that, then Jesus Christ, right? But that's half of humanity whose history is wrapped up in the belief and understanding that Christianity is somehow a source of reliable historical record. Specifically the part about God creating man. I don't know about anything else. But again, you get this question of maybe that's information that destabilizes the world. Maybe that's information that destabilizes people's understanding, but I don't know if that's information to break the world. I don't think it's invalidating of something fundamental, but I could understand how the assessment of certain people, particularly people of faith, as to what that would do to other people in the faith. You know, I'm not going to dismiss that. So you're talking about 4.7 Judeo-Christian Islamic, you know, give or take. And then people who are sympathetic and or leaning that way. So you probably clear into the 5 billion. So that's over half the world. That's over half the world. And we don't even know how this would affect other religious faiths. We just know how this would affect Christianity, or we assume. That's another thing I want to get into too before I start this video, because I am going to start we are going to watch a video again. I got this video all queued up. It's called UFO Warning to Christians. I think it's very interesting what he talks about. And again, I'm going to try to be really respectful of Christianity. I'm not trying to just be disrespectful or dismissive or you know, trying to ridicule or anything like that. People have their beliefs, and for this particular discussion, and not even saying that I'm just doing that in general, but like, I think people assume because I'm not an atheist that I'm just a religious antagonist, and that's not necessarily the case. There are things in religion that I will antagonize, but I don't ultimately think about gods. I feel they're a bit small for me, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think talking about how this affects people's belief systems who do believe, I think it's something worth considering. I definitely think it's not something to be dismissed or ignored, even if it's something that you may want as a secularist, someone who's not a believer, or someone who thinks that Christianity is a net negative. Christianity is a net negative to society, to civilization. Interesting. Audio owns says not necessarily information, but one major one would be extraterrestrials cherry picking humans based on their potential and communicating with us directly and giving us access to tech no group has. That would be interesting if we found out that there was direct alien communication and that ultimately they were cherry picking who in society got to do what, who were the millionaires, who were the, you know what I mean? Like that would probably be pretty shitty. I don't know if, again, would it break the world? Look at this guy smile though. Look at this guy. I want to smile like that when I grow up.
Hello there. Christian leaders have been told to prepare their congregations for UFO disclosures that will make them question their Christian beliefs.
I'm going to stop it right there because, you know, I do like how he opens this video, but I sort of, even as not a Christian, am sort of baffled by the assumption that anything could jostle a person of faith loose from their faith. The entire idea of their faith is the notion that no matter what evidence is presented against it, they're going to believe regardless. So the idea that there's something so ontologically shocking that it is beyond, you have to prepare the pastors for it, that it's like, okay, well, wouldn't the pastors also be questioning this? Like, there's something in that feels a bit strange. But we'll get there.
Yes, a well-known evangelist from the US called Perry Stone alleges that, or claims that he and others have been secretly briefed to expect some UFO disclosures to be made.
And I don't know who that is, by the way, Perry Stone. He's saying that like he's a well-known pastor or something like that. I have no idea who that is.
That will make people question or even upend their Christian beliefs. And this was in the US, a secret briefing by US intelligence authorities for the religious community to prepare them for all this supposed bad news coming from UFO disclosures. So yeah, there's a lot to that one. Now, according to MSN, according to Stone, the officials warned a small group of pastors with a huge reach in the Christian community that the government was about to release reports and possibly videos of aliens and spacecraft which were not from this planet. In the April 27th video posted on his YouTube channel, the evangelist claimed that pastors were told about the existence of reptilian creatures, UFOs, and materials from a non-human origin, and other things that almost sound like something out of a sci-fi movie.
I mean, we're staring into computer screens, talking over the internet to hundreds of thousands or millions of people at any given moment with satellites above our head, nuclear weapons at the ready, and artificial intelligence getting ready to reach super. Like, that sounds like sci-fi. This doesn't sound like sci-fi no more than any other shit I just named sounds like sci-fi.
Yes, and this comes after an order from President Trump to the Pentagon and to his Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to release everything they've got, basically, on UFO existence and all the rest of it, and alien activities, extraterrestrials, whatever it might be. So that sounds like they're preparing their pastors for all of this, isn't it? To make sure that they're ready with answers for the Christian community about what's going to happen now. What are they going to believe now? Yes, and the Mail Online is running with this story as well as many others. But in the Mail Online, it quotes Stone as saying, "You're going to have people who are going to say if there are galaxies and there are allegedly other creations in the galaxies, then the whole creation story is a myth. And you're going to have people that's going to apostatize and turn from the Christian faith because they have no answer for what they're about to hear.
What? Have you met a Christian, good sir? Like, I don't like this. No disrespect to him, because I mean, he seems like a well-meaning guy. He is making it sound like, oh, you're just going to show some Christians a video and they're just going to stop believing that Jesus Christ is Lord. I don't see that happening. The entire idea of being a man of faith or a woman of faith is someone who is going to believe regardless of what someone puts in front of you, just because that's what the faith demands. It is designed to withstand evidence. I hate to use the word proof, because, you know, proof is such a loaded word, but evidence that do not support the preconceived notion or worldview of the person being confronted with it. So yeah, I don't know Christians who are like, I'm just waiting on the right video. You show me the right video, I'll stop believing in this shit. It's like, dog, you can show me whatever you want, I'ma still believe in Jesus. Like, that is them. That is who and what they are. That is a part of their sort of ontological identity. That is their very makeup in existence, is to be a person of the Judeo-Christian God. Now, I contend that humans can't even define what God is. I think they're incapable of doing it, but that's neither here nor there. For those who believe that humans can define what a God is, then, hey, if you're a person of that particular God, I don't think there's anything that could dissuade you from that belief. I really don't. Tombstone says what he fails to understand is that Christians already precondition their people for this. I remember hearing them say that any other stuff would be devils. Yeah, I've seen people already say this. I've seen people say that this is demonic, that this is the work of people who want to lead you away from gods and God. That's why they're so against the idea of aliens, because they believe the people releasing the information are people just trying to lead you away from your beliefs. Anyway.
Yes. So we're going to hear about all these UFOs that is suddenly going to prove God doesn't exist and Jesus Christ never existed.
Well, how would it do that? Oh, no, I do get what he's saying. He's saying that it would prove that the Christian God doesn't exist. Now, here's the thing I will say, and this, I guess I'm talking to the Christians when I say this, which is like, you do realize other faiths of bygone eras have gone through what you're worried about going through, which is the extinction level event of an ideology or belief system. All other belief systems of the past that are no longer worshipped as mainstream had an extinction level event that caused that. There had to be some incident in the world that in history that caused people to not believe that anymore, whether the people were wiped out, whether there was evidence to change. Like the Copernican model of the stars was enough to, like, fundamentally, it was like a meteor, an asteroid hit the planet of the belief that the sun rotated around the earth. Right? And then from that, the sort of extinction level event of everyone who still believed in that, they're in the, and I don't mean this in the disrespectful way, but like the dustbin of history, the dustbin of ideological history. There are certain things that we are just, you know, I think about this too, and I don't know how much truth this is. This might be an urban legend, so let me not repeat this and as if it's just true and 100% utter fact, right? But apparently there was a time before we understood germs and how they work and, you know, how people get sick, that the medical people of a village or a tribe had no concept of like sterilizing or washing their hands before, you know, offering assistance to women giving birth. And a lot of these babies would get sick because they hadn't entered the age of understanding, like, hey, I need to wash my hands and or protect my hands or protect this baby from getting germs from my hands as I am helping this mother deliver this child. And because of that, there was a mortality rate. It's pretty high. And it wasn't until somebody who came along who was like, yo, we need to start like washing our hands. We need to start, you know, making sure that we consider the fact that we can pass on infections to these children who don't have the immune system to fight it. And then they're going to, you know, they're going to pass away. And it wasn't until that was sort of recognized later on that the mortality rate of newborns who were born in this circumstance began to drop. And so when you think about how people think and the rigidity in which they hold those thoughts, do not assume that there isn't a extinction level event type meteor asteroid that's gonna hit your fucking planet of beliefs and basically destroy all your dinosaur ass beliefs. And maybe Christianity is one of those. Along with, trust me, if Christianity don't survive, a lot of shit ain't surviving. So I don't think it's just, I think Christianity might be the belief where people are able to disseminate information through like the chains of leadership efficiently because of congregations and things like that. But I don't think things that aren't Christianity are safe from having their world affected by this asteroid if it hits as well. And I do mean asteroid, like a fundamental, you know, piece of a planet or some chunk from the asteroid belt that just got knocked into the path of our orbit that basically is going to change life as we understand it on this planet. And you basically have that about to happen if what they're saying is true. Again, I have a hard time believing anything could jostle that level of faith and commitment to that faith. But if they're warning people, if there are people saying, hey, listen, dog, there's going to be people with some questions. That's all I'm going to say. And if you can't just answer those, they're going to look at you. And the fact that you can't answer those questions could do enough to erode their trust in the faith. It's not that they're going to hear something and be like, oh, I don't believe it no more. It's that they're going to hear something so compelling that they're going to go to church and talk about it. They're going to be talking about it not at church. They're going to be talking about it with their friends. And sooner or later, someone's going to ask you about it. Like, hey, I heard there's other planets and other stars out there. What does God say about that? And you're going to have to be like, God did say he created the heavens and the earth, right? Okay, so then the heavens include what God created. And then you just roll it all into the same belief. But like, don't think people aren't going to talk about it. Don't think people aren't going to talk about it. People are going to talk about it. Them not answering questions or can't will shake some people. It's what shook me loose. Yeah, I think this is what happens when you have a monopoly on the truth, right? When all truths must come from your belief tree, and then there's a truth that comes from outside of it, and everybody looks at the tree with suspicion. I think the vulnerability of Christianity is its claim of monopoly on the truth. That's where its weakness is. I've already said to people, I'd be much more willing to believe in Christianity if it told me that its God wasn't all powerful. But from their perspective, that's almost like a rejection of the belief entirely, because the belief is the claim that that God is all powerful. Meanwhile, OBC is looking real good right now. Yeah, no, you ain't lying. I mean, I think OBC or primordial consciousness, they're neck and neck as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, I would like OBC to be fucking, you know.
Or he did exist, because there's too much proof to say he didn't, and that he wasn't what he claimed, or isn't what the Christian faith claims.
See, that's right there. It's like what the Christian faith claims, they have to claim it in such an absolute way that the faith is dependent on them believing regardless of what evidence is put forward or not. Like, it doesn't, Clam Newton? I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy, dog. I'm not worthy, dog. That's too good. But yeah, it's like there's a claim. It's like the claim reinforces the demand to believe in the face of what is presented as evidence against the belief. And I just feel like the one weakness that they've always had, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion, is that they speak from a place of absolute monopoly on the truth. They aren't the only one. Again, they aren't the only one, but yeah, they are the main one to do that.
But I doubt that very much, but there you go. And what they're saying is that there's all this potential proof out there to potentially upend Christian beliefs in total. Prepare your flocks for the worst seems to be the message coming from the intelligence services in the US. Now, why have pastors been singled out? Just think about it for a moment. If they're going to come out with all this stuff about aliens, it's going to upend just about everybody. Everybody's view of the world and the universe is going to change. Even if you thought there were aliens and UFOs, if some proof came out and says, oh, here's the UFO and here's the alien, it might be completely different to the way that you imagined it. It might upend your entire view.
Well, and that's why this is almost speaks to a greater issue with like science fiction. Is nothing is really alien to us, because from our perspective, alien still is humanoid. Alien is still like something that can vocalize or even through telepathy communicate with humanoid species, right? Like, I don't know. It's never really alien enough. There's nothing that I've only seen one or two movies where the alien really like freaked me out because it was so alien to anything that I had seen. Even the xenomorph, for all its advantages in being the apex predator and that type of shit, which is dope. I do think there are planets out there which just produce the apex predator of the planet, right? And I would love to have a tournament of apex planet fucking Olympics and shit. But anyway, I do believe that there are planets out there where survival is so paramount that it just produces the apex predator, and maybe we are it. Maybe our brain is what no claw or teeth or poison could ever do on the field on the theater of nature, right? But I don't know. I just feel like nothing is ever really truly alien. And so he's saying it being different than anything you could possibly imagine. I don't know. I mean, even interdimensional, I can imagine. unless interdimensional means something completely different than what I understand, right? But yeah, I don't know. Colin Beamer says, what's OBC? I can't figure out the context for a quick search engine input. Well, that means we've got pretty good security. I'd like to appreciate. OBC is something that myself and Tombstone and Echelon and Structure and a bunch of other people basically wrote for our comic book rules. It's like it's a framework for how to see reality so that you can write in our comic book framework. Unfortunately, it has implications ontologically in which it describes all of reality, but that's neither here nor there. Sorry.
Anyway, nothing is the same as your, the reality never matches the imagination in any way. So what are we going to be told? Are we going to find out that all the sci-fi films over the last 50 years have been leading to this point?
Wait, which sci-fi films? Independence Day or like fucking Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Or what is it? The Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind? I don't know which kind it was, but it was Close Encounters, goddammit.
Yeah, and why haven't they called in members of other faiths? Why just Christian pastors?
I have an issue with this as well. See, I have said in a very critical way that Christianity has a victimhood complex. The problem with that is that a lot of people tend to satisfy their victimhood complex and give them a reason to have that. There are times where I'm seeing a secular society give Christians a reason to say, see, they're targeting us because they don't want you to know the truth of Christ. Like I've seen that. And ultimately they will say they're telling us because they know we have the truth. Nobody else has the truth. See, that's why they're not telling them. They didn't pull all the imams and the rabbis and the monks together to tell them. There's a great scene in the Three Body Problem. If anybody's ever seen the Three Body Problem, it's a fucking great scene. And it's when the aliens, well, I don't want to spoil it, but it's when humanity has to reconcile with what we apparently will have to reconcile with, right? And I think everybody has the same reaction, which is, well, let's just say everybody has the same reaction. Go watch the Three Body Problem. It's pretty amazing. I think what is going to happen is that those who claim to have had a monopoly on the truth will be probably the most vulnerable in the paradigm shift information that comes. I think that's going to be probably a given. If you've spoke with a level of certainty this whole time and, you basically are like, we have the truth. We know the truth. We are the truth. Well, when a truth comes from outside of you, it makes you the most vulnerable, in my opinion. That's just my own thoughts. I'm sure people in the future are looking at this like, boy, were you wrong. Yeah, I didn't know they were the largest religious sect. I could have sworn it was either Hindu or Islam, but I could be wrong. But that persecution complex that I was referring to, that Tombstone's talking about, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that in the sort of the tenets of the faith, they were persecuted in the Roman times, and then they expect to be persecuted for being, proponents of what they consider the one true God is. But again, if this is a truth that comes outside of that ideological origin story, then they're going to have to reconcile with the fact that people are going to look at Christianity in the way Christianity looks at Roman gods, Greek gods, African gods, whatever gods that Christianity looks down on and dismisses. You know, in the certainty in which they say, I am a Christian and therefore I speak from a place of authority in truth that I know to be correct. That's only valid until something comes along that invalidates it. And that's always possible if this being has never showed up. We've never seen the Christian God show up and be like, hey, it's me. Sorry, I just wanted to let you guys know I was here. Just chilling and shit. You know, I'll be letting all the shit crazy happen, but I'm still here. We've never seen that. That's why it's the faith. That's why the whole concept is to have faith in the fact that it did happen and that what you believe is going to happen will happen. I think there's a lot of comfort in the cope that gives people comfort that you're going to see people that you loved when you die. You're going to have an afterlife. There's going to be retribution for the evils of the world. I think there's a lot of comfort in that, what I would consider cope. Some people wouldn't. Some people consider it's the truth, and that's what they believe. But, and I'm not even one to say that they're wrong. I just don't believe that what their origin story for reality is accurate. That's all. And then you get into the, even if that God was real and true, what, you know, how would you know that that is the apex entity? Because my question is, let's say the God of the Bible is real, but he was created by a being greater than himself, which some beliefs actually have, right? I know there are Gnostic beliefs that believe that God had a creator. Are you obligated to worship the being that created you? Even if that being that created you appears to be infinite and eternal? But if you find out that being was created by a greater being, to whom do you owe your worship? The being that created you or the being that created it? And this is under the assumption that this being is real, but also this being was created by a greater being. Because I will say this in debate. I'm willing to accept that your God is real if you're willing to accept that it was also created by a greater being. Now, you may decide to worship this being because it created us. Awesome, fantastic. I'm not. Even if I knew it was real, even if I knew it created us, I wouldn't worship such a being. I have my own reasons for that. I'm sure I've voiced them in many occasions. But if the Christian God came right now and was like, I am Lord, all every need, okay, I don't want to be where you are. Vermin asks, what gives our worship value? And I think that's another question. It's like, what do you give a person who has everything? Like, what present or gift do you give to someone who literally has everything? There's nothing that our worship could give to a being that has and is everything. The archetype of the very emotions it wants us to feel for it. What could we offer it that it doesn't already have? Why is worship so important? Unless it was really important not to. You're also describing the difference between people whose God is Jesus versus the Creator. And that's another thing. I think in Christianity, there's a weird thing to worship Jesus Christ. And, you know, God and the Holy Spirit and all the angels and all that stuff is kind of secondary. It really is the notion that Jesus is Lord. And that might be true, right? That, according to the idea of the Trinity doctrine, they are essentially one entity. But again, you go back to this whole idea of why would that be invalidated by whatever comes out in these discussions? Why would you call together a group of Christian pastors and not pastors from another faith or people from another faith? And I would argue that I have not heard outside of Christianity people's faith saying that any creation outside of their God's creation is wholly invalid because it invalidates the story that they have accepted that justifies their faith. Audio owns says, before I was an atheist, I did learn that it was important to not worship. It's about knowing and gnosis. Whatever it is doesn't want you to worship it. Yeah, and I mean, I go back into that as well, which is like, again, I created you. I don't need you to worship me. Like, I don't pretend to understand the mind of this God. I say God with a little g. But it's one of those things where I can't understand possibly what my worship and reverence of you would give you. Even the lip service of saying, I accept you as God, or I accept you as, like, okay, so what does that give you? What is that? Does it give you another soldier in your army? For what? Who are you fighting? Why do you have to have numbers? If this is a truth that is beyond reproach, doesn't matter how many numbers exist. But it is an interesting, discussion to have.
Is it because maybe the Bible itself doesn't sort of talk about aliens and alien worlds and things outside the earth, whereas maybe Islam could be interpreted as accepting the possibility of alien life? I don't know.
I thought that the Bible had stories that sounded like UFO contact, and Ezekiel and a wheel of wheels, and I mean, even angels sound like aliens, if you're really being honest. An angel is a type of alien for a human, right? I mean, well, maybe if we've always been around aliens, they're not alien to us, and they're just a part of the, ontological stack of entities, with God being the very top and humans being somewhere in the upper order, but not that high. You know what I mean? Like, I know we're supposed to sit above angels, which that part sometimes is frustrating, because it's like, I'm trying to be respectful, y'all. Because I don't like when people sort of are dismissive about the genuine position and place I come from with my non-belief, or that, whatever you want to call it. But I know there's some people out there who be like, yeah, and atheists just believe this all came from nothing. It's like, that's not what I think, but okay.
It does seem a bit singular just to pick out one bunch of people, doesn't it, for this great enlightenment process? Anyway, yes. But is it all just part of preparing us for the great revelations to come? And I use the word revelation on purpose.
What do I think about relationship anarchy? I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Is that what this is all about? Preparing us for this this coming age of extraterrestrials with materials and things that will suddenly improve our lives, and we will be forever grateful to this alien culture, these aliens that, and will we suddenly be presented with real ones?
Well, and there's a look at that smile. There's a show called Childhood's End, and it is about essentially this very thing where aliens come out. Look, I'm not gonna completely spoil it, but aliens come and they look like what we would consider demons to look like. And because of that, they're wholly rejected by a lot of the faiths of the world, and people are like, this is the Antichrist and all this kind of shit. Okay, I don't know. For sci-fi, it is an interesting story because they told it from a perspective of like the aliens took care of humanity for like 5 years before they revealed themselves. The way they took care of humanity is they gave them, you know, everything. They world peace, the whole nine. And then when they revealed themselves, they looked like demons, and people still freaked out. But yet, eventually, I think they accepted them, and that was just the sort of like the lore that ancient peoples had told about their kind, and you know that's why they didn't show themselves. And I have a hard time believing that aliens are going to come and somehow bail us out of our bullshit. I don't think that reality is, I'll be honest with you guys, man. I don't believe this is a moral place, no matter how you slice it. This is not a reality, this universe, whatever you want to call this shit. This is is there good in it? Relative and, you know, subjective? Sure, I believe that. But man, this is a harsh fucking reality. And I have a hard time believing if alien, like, you know, dark forest hypothesis, like if you make a noise in the forest, something's gonna fucking eat you. Try not to make as much noise as possible. Now, you're gonna make some noise as you become a technological species, but you gotta be careful how much noise you make, because somebody might hear you and everyone's a threat to everyone else in the dark forest. Yeah, Tombstone says, here's an idea. Just tell the truth as we know it, instead of trying to craft an explanation in order to save egos and crap. But you know, I'm an asshole, so yeah, what an asshole. Yeah, I agree with you, but I also think that truth has consequences. I think there are a lot of people who feel like you, just like tell the truth. Like, what do we have to hide? And the more we hide, the less we have to sort of come to terms with it. But what if there's some shit that's a one-way street? Once people know, it is a way more hostile and volatile world because people know. I don't believe that to be the case, but I can understand people who are assessing the potential risk as that. So as far as not wanting to sort of be on the radar of any other species out there, I grew up on Star Trek, so in my mind it's a sort of, you know, we are family sort of situation with all the species of the Milky Way. But I also consider the fact that, again, we could be in a dark ass forest, and the more noise we make, the more that predators see us and hear us making that noise and want to come to investigate. And if we can't defend ourselves, it's like, what are you going to do? You only own what you can defend. So The problem of evil is also challenging to reconcile avoidable suffering with the hypothesis of an all-powerful or an all-good God. I agree with that, which is why I would argue, me personally, if the Judeo-Christian God was to show himself and be like, oh yeah, by the way, I exist, I just want to let you guys know, still wouldn't get worship. I would just now have the knowledge that it exists. So my question again to Tombstone and Verms is, what makes worship so valuable to this being? Diana Reddick says, how do you feel the future goes as far as things ecologically and economically? Is AI going to save us? Where am I at with AI? I mean, I'm probably more pro AI than most people, but I've been talking about AI for what, 15, 16, 17 years? I would argue close to 20 years I've been talking about AI. Oh, I'll look at it real quick. Said if worship means to bond with or to resonate with our creator, that's very different than worship, meaning simply stroking the creator's ego. Well, and that's what a lot of them describe heaven as, is sitting around for eternity singing praises to the creator because we revere and we love and we respect him so much. And it's like, wow, that just seems like a crazy type of entity to create the circumstances where the eventuality is his creation sitting around and praising him for all eternity. That's weird. And then the beings that didn't somehow worship him or accept him to worship him are in a place where they are punished. They call it separated, but you know. CJ Ortiz says, but for all these disputes, I think that we should just walk back our conception of God. I don't believe in a God. I do believe in a goddess, a mother nature who does her best, but she still needs our help. Audio Owns says AI is the only way to the Kardashev scale to get to type 1. I think we can get to type 1 without AI. It just would take longer. Type 1 is, you remember, the Kardashev scale is really just an energy, consumption and production scale for civilizations. I don't know if it's, Tombstone says, is that what worship means? Is there a precedent for that? Some sort of etymology that leads us to that conclusion? Pick and Choose says, I agree with you. I think hell is a terrible concept. Yeah, I think hell is one of the biggest problems with God. I think suffering is one of the biggest problems with God. It's the one thing that you'd have a 99.9% belief rate if there was no suffering in reality. And don't tell me you can't create a reality without suffering, because you just told me you could do anything. Like, you just told me you were all powerful. You can't create a reality with zero suffering? Oh yeah, that's right. I gotta promote. For those who don't know, we are just beginning the ramp up of our Kickstarter for the Majesty Reader Project. Tombstone just posted the link. We would love for you guys to go follow that. It's not live yet. You don't have to It's not anything money related right now, but it helps us get the visibility out. It helps us contact you when we do go live, and there's a really nice video. I should probably show that video too. I'll probably do that video like a commercial or something. How do we eliminate suffering on this planet when opposites exist? I believe in opposites. Is believing in opposites problematic? I mean, if you're describing pain as the absence of pleasure, or, you know, things like in that sort of way, I don't know if I would agree with that. I think there's clear suffering, and I think this being knows exactly what it was doing when it created this reality and the entities that would suffer because of it, which is why I don't believe. It is very likely that there is an entity that was the first in reality to reach godhood, and because of that, it began to create the rest of reality, or parts of reality that it had control over in its own image and, you know, whatever. But do I believe that that God or that being created reality itself? I don't. And I don't even believe that that exists, but it's possible. I think it's way more possible than it just there was a God initially, and that God decided to create everything, you know? But again, that entity would need nothing from the beings that are creating it. That's my sort of whole point in that. In the Matrix, the architect is explaining to Neo that the first versions were perfect. Yeah, but again, I go back to this idea of, if it was perfect, then they wouldn't have kept trying to wake up. I think you can design a human that doesn't try to wake up from perfection. Yeah, I can make an argument for why suffering exists, and there is a creator, but it completely invalidates the Christian creator for sure.
Who knows? You know, that's what the talk is, you know, all this sort of thing going on in the background. I'm sure if it was, wouldn't we know about it already? Anyway, there you go. But many Christians will point to this as part of God's plan and just say, well, this is the arrival of the Antichrist. This is what they're portraying. They're putting it forward as this, when in actual fact it's the return of the Antichrist.
And that's the part where it's like I stopped taking Christianity seriously, because it's like, bro, not everything can be the fucking Antichrist. Not everything. And again, it goes back to this thing of like, yes, everything that doesn't fit into my belief system is demonic, immoral, and evil. And again, this is my issue with Christianity, because I don't think in those terms of absolutes. Especially if your God is not going to be considered evil for allowing evil to exist, that is fucking black and white as it comes. You're talking about the most powerful being in existence has the ability to stop some of the most heinous things as they're happening in real time, and he chooses not to? And that being is moral? Yeah, dog. Nah, I'm cool. That sounds crazy.
Which is all part of God's...
Did the Antichrist create hell, or did God create hell? Did the Antichrist create suffering, or did God create suffering? It's always like, beware of this, beware of the devil, beware of the Antichrist. Those motherfuckers aren't creating this shit. You are. You could have created any reality you wanted to create, and you created this. And I've heard people say, well, God didn't want to create robots. You can create robots or you can create humans that don't act like robots who still don't feel suffering. Like that's just a limitation of the God that you're describing. Trying to pronounce your name, Ladnaros. I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure I butchered it. You said I have a formalized theory of God as an emergent entropy reduction. I made an actual falsifiable argument for God only as a verb instead of a noun. So God is a process, not like a traditional sort of person, place, or thing. If you believe in God, do you believe in the devil? If you believe in good, I don't know. I mean, again, these are some people's belief systems, but this is why they went to certain people and told them and not to others, because certain people have the belief systems and the ideological scaffolding to process this, and other people don't. Tombstone says hell comes from the idea of Sheol, and it wasn't hell in the way we think of today. The hell we think of today comes from Dante's Inferno. Yeah, the hellfire, brimstone, and like demons torturing people and all that type of shit. Like to me, that's always been just used as a fear tactic from people who believe that, you know, they have to scare you into believing some shit. I wish there was a hell for really, really shitty people. You know what I mean? But even if I thought that was the case, how long should they be there? After how long do I think even my human adolescent, you know, revenge complex or whatever, it's just like, yeah, you did me wrong, so I'm gonna make you suffer, right? I think we all have that in us. It's like a primal thing or whatever. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're better than me. I'm sure you are. But like, even then, I'm not gonna have you in hell for eternity, forever. There's like one or two things I would probably put somebody in hell forever for. And even then, it'd probably still be unjust. Like, and we can get into some real bad paperwork type shit. I get it. Some people deserve the frying pan. Some people deserve the most heinous exit from this world. But is that payment enough for their crimes? Maybe it is that multiplied by 100, by 1,000, by 1,000,000, by 1,000,000,000, by 1,000,000,000,000. But there is some finite end to that. I think there is justice when a penance has been served. I'm pretty petty too, dog. I'm pretty petty. I mean, I can go there, especially when it terms, you know, when I start channeling orphanhood and all kind of shit, like I can go there. But eternity, dog, I would just have you live a couple of lives that taught you, hey man, maybe don't do this. Hey girl, maybe don't do this. You know, for every shitty life you live, I'd probably be like, okay, you got to live 7 in a row that are not great lives, and you get to remember that you did this so that when you're going through that, you understand what's going on, so you always have a choice. Now obviously, as a guy, you don't even have to allow, if you're creating the function set of reality and existence, you don't even have to write those functions into the code. You shouldn't even allow this action into the code of reality. How is that? And I'm a fucking idiot. I'm not a smart person. What did he say? I am not a smart man. Like, I think a God is going to outthink me in infinite orders of magnitude. And I still believe this is a better thing that I came up with in 5 minutes on some good weed than the God of the Bible ever came up with. I mean, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is like, even if you made yourself forget, on the grand order of things, maybe you define morality. Is that truly moral, or is morality what you define it? There's another thing. One of the reasons why I don't like the idea of absolute entities and absolute apex entities that can define morality, because if they say, hey, go dash those babies into rocks by their feet, which happens in the Bible. Hey, bear, go maul those children for making fun of that dude. That happened in the Bible, right? Like, it just seems like, am I moral, or is morality what I define it to be? And it doesn't matter what I say, as evil and as heinous as it could possibly be, that's moral because I said it. If that's true, that's fucking crazy, bro. That's crazy talk. It's like, I can define morality and I can make you all think this is good because I said it. Go do these horrible things, but in the name of me, it's moral? Whew. Hell sounds real good. Hell sounds real good, dog, because I don't want to be around that entity. I'm going to say some shit. The Metatron's going to have to I'm going to have to battle the Metatron or some shit. Nah.
Plan. And as part of God's plan, it's preparing us eventually for the return of Christ, Jesus Christ, to the earth, to defeat the Antichrist and rule. So it does fit some parts, doesn't it? Does fit parts of the whole plan, you could say, and Christians might well argue. Now, I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm not going to say one way or the other, because
he's a Christian. I didn't even get this far in the video. When I started watching this, I maybe got like 3 minutes in. I was like, I want to watch this on the stream.
Because people out there aren't the same as me. People out there have other faiths, have other versions of Christianity. That's up to you to decide. I'm firm in my faith. I'm not sure that other people will be. But we'll see. We'll see. Now, if these people have received this secret briefing, do you think that it's only in America that these things are happening? One wonders, actually, doesn't one, that maybe, just maybe, these things are happening elsewhere. Maybe they're happening in Russia and in the UK. Because I'm sure it's not just America that would have proof of alien cultures and alien materials and all that sort of thing. And if that is the case, do you really think that King Charles III and Queen Elizabeth II is and had been kept out of that loop? Do you think they would have known about this sort of thing? Because they're hereditary. Hereditary, it's in the family. They're always going to be the head of state, one of them. So surely they must know. Are they being briefed on this? Ready, in preparation? Because everyone has to be prepared in case a story such as this broke suddenly from nowhere, wouldn't they? They would have to say to themselves, we must be ready with a spiel, with a whole raft of propaganda through well-established nudge routes, these nudge units that do so much to interfere in our lives with psychological pushing and shoving and all the rest of it. They would have to all be ready to leap in, wouldn't they, with a story. And the biggest story out of this would in actual fact be that the entire population of the planet have been kept in the dark for decades, if not longer. Wouldn't they? That would be the big. What are they so frightened of? Why do they distrust us so much? What would actually happen if we did find out? In fact, one could argue that if such an event occurred, that the whole of the planet would unite as one. Wouldn't it? Would it? And if we did that, ready to look after ourselves should we be attacked or something? Or are these aliens so powerful that we could never do that? So these thoughts sort of crossed my mind when this story came up. And I've been thinking about it, going, well, what should happen really? Should we be told? My thinking goes towards the thought that yes, we should be told. We should be informed about this sort of stuff and not left until the last second when it becomes inevitable, or when it becomes politically expedient for them to do so. That's the other side of it, isn't it? Is it now becoming politically expedient for us to find out about this?
Oh, my bad.
Never, ever take anything on face value with these people. Doesn't matter who they are. They're politicians. They're the ones who are ruling the roost. And also remember that these materials and these aliens, if they exist, if that's what's going to come out, they are actually very powerful weapons potentially, aren't they?
I remember what I said when I was muted, which was basically, if they are too powerful for us to fight, that would lean more into the Anunnaki legend of the whole Ajiji and humans were created as like a replacement for the Ajiji. Right?
Thing that the establishment will defend, and that's its ability to make weapons. So to release that sort of stuff would be almost self-defeating, wouldn't it? I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know if they do exist or if they don't exist. But we've seen absolutely no evidence, or I have seen absolutely no evidence that to me proves they do exist. If they existed to that degree and were that powerful and could get here across light years, then I'm sure they would have manifested themselves more openly by now. I'm sure of it. Or maybe they are, but we can't recognise it. That will be the answer to that. Yes, all interesting stuff, don't you think? So there you have it. We're going to be inundated with talk about aliens for the next few weeks, I suppose. Takes the eye off the ball with the elections, doesn't it? Stops us thinking about anything else, doesn't it? You know, mass migration, problems like that. People will start saying, is that where AI comes from? Is that the real truth? I don't know. Do you? Come on, leave some comments in the comment section below.
Yeah, I like this guy too, Berm. I think this guy's dope. There was another video. There's another video that I wonder if this was
the numerous sightings of UAP.
So this is Lou Elizondo and Ross Colehart that was talking about this as well. And I think the one thing that I thought was very interesting about this is the stuff that they said that they saw on the moon, and that the NASA astronauts actually had reports of seeing certain things that they then declassified in these documents, where you could hear them clearly saying they saw stuff. Now, what they were describing, you know, you could decide that for yourself, but yeah. I definitely said the guy's name on, his name is
Hello there.
Tripe and whatnot. I'm gonna post this video so you guys can see it. It'll be here.
The numerous sightings of UAP over in and around nuclear production facilities, and that all over the United States. So
what if they are future us? And by us, I mean GU. That would be incredible. That would be crazy. That would be, I mean, wouldn't that be crazy?
Savannah River facility, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Los Alamos. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on.
Lou, you've been dealing, I know yourself, with both people in the Trump White House, in the administration, National Security Council level for quite some time. Do you get the impression that there is a political will, a decisiveness from President Trump to actually do something about UAP disclosure, or is this just a diversion from him?
No, I think there's an honest desire there from the people I've spoken to, but there's also a real liability there. Everybody's talking about, what they want to see, but nobody's talking about what the risks are. And there are real risks, by the way, whenever you do this, because what you don't want to do is tip your hand to your foreign adversaries like Russia and China and broadcast an intelligence gap or a vulnerability that we have, right? You don't want to, or potentially worse, a new capability we have that had wound up being ours to begin with, and oops, cat's out of the bag, guys. So that's not a good place to be in. Plus, there's also liability there.
I do think that we have technology that our geopolitical adversaries are unaware that we have. I do believe that. I think when you have trillions of dollars of budget that can go into quote unquote national defense, which we know is war, I think you're going to discover some shit. You know what I'm saying? Especially, you're going to discover some shit at some point. I mean, you're going to discover some shit. You have the ability to basically buy the top minds and threaten the top minds to be like, look, we can give you a really, really good lifestyle to come work for us and to develop all these crazy technologies for us. Or we can basically target you, your friends, and your family and make your life a living hell. Your choice, because we have the budget for both. And most people are just going to be like, you know what? It's probably easier for me just to go along, get along. And they just do it. And I really do think that is a reality for a lot of the top. I was looking at a video, I think it was Moonshots, and they were talking about how in the future, anybody who develops AI at a certain level will be classified a national security risk, because any AI you could develop could be a geopolitical destabilizer because it could upend the balance of power. I could see that too. You know what I'm saying?
There's actually secret law in place that prevents and prohibits, in some cases, even discussing this topic. People think, well, what do you mean there's a secret law? There's secret laws all the time. Look how we do FISA all the time when we start collecting information on foreign intelligence services. And yes, Americans too. We listen into conversations sometimes, and we're not supposed to, but sometimes it happens. I think there's real liability there. The government has been involved in this cover-up now for decades, plural, going on at least 80 years now. It took us a long time to get to this point. So I think there's going to be some very careful maneuvering on what we do next, because there's very significantly, and again, I won't waste your time now or your audience, but at some point, if you want to have a legal conversation, we can certainly do that and get some lawyers in here, because I know that when I was briefed from the legal consequences, there are actual real legal consequences here.
Does that explain why Congress has gone so soft in the main about using subpoena powers? I mean, they could compel release of information, couldn't they? If indeed, as is being asserted, I mean, the fundamental premise at the heart of all of this is that there's been a... Why is that?
No, because if you look at really, for example, there are certain, look at Executive Order 12333, for example, U.S. intelligence activities. There is a certain group of intelligence operations that never have to be disclosed, except for to the Gang of Six, or at least they should be, and that is covert action, covert operation. Now, I'm not going to go into detail here. There's a legal definition for it if anybody's interested in looking at it, but these are operations where the U.S. government can officially deny its involvement, and does all the time, and it will lie to the American people and it will lie to the world to do it. And it's called, as part of that is covert action, and we do it all the time. And so if there are legal proceedings and procedures and precedents that protect these type of operations, certainly when I was working in the government, a lot of what I did touched the world of covert operations. And I would never be able to talk about that ever, unless someone gave me permission to do it. And I don't doubt that the UAP topic has been handled the same way for many, many years.
Well, I was heartened to see, Lou, that Chuck Schumer was still indicating, as himself a member of the Gang of Eight in his time, that he's still keen to get to the truth. Lou Elizondo, it's great to see you back in public life after what I'm sure was a devastating and harrowing experience coming off your motorcycle. Welcome back.
Ross, it probably made me more handsome. Unfortunately, you can't. There's no really much improvement on this. So, fortunately, my wife probably got a little bit of a newer me out of it. But let me just say this real quick, Ross, before I leave. You have been on the tip of the spear on this topic now for a while, and this country owes you a great deal of respect and appreciation, because I do believe in some way what we are seeing right now is a result either directly or indirectly from some of your efforts. You have gone way out on a limb. You have brought people in, whistleblowers out from the cold, and forced this conversation on a group of people that really did not want to have this conversation. So to a large degree, a lot of where we are, there's a lot of people that deserve credit, right? There's people in Congress.
Absolutely.
Luna and Burleson and Burchett and Gillibrand and all those folks, Marco Rubio, but it's also the people in the media. And there's fewer of them than there are even members of Congress that were supporting this. And you were one of them. You're one of the original plank holders. And it's an honor and privilege that I got a chance to know you well before today. To some degree, maybe you can sit back a little bit and maybe say, I told you so to some of your colleagues that maybe didn't topic very feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's very kind of you, Lou. Hey, listen, it's great to have you back, and looking forward to having you on again soon.
Hey, what's funny is a lot of people are going to say, I told you so. There's a lot of people who've been saying this shit for a long time, dog. A lot of fucking people. And we've all called them crazy. We've all called them conspiracy theorists, and we've all called them kooks and quacks and, nut jobs, and this person belongs in a loony bin and stay on your meds, and all of the derision and dismissal for people who are saying that there might be something else out there that we are just being lied to about. Not that we didn't know existed. I think most people realize that the universe is so large, we can't be the only ones, but that the government had some sort of confirmation evidence that they've been keeping hidden. Now, will this be that sort of drop Thor's hammer, nobody can pick it up type shit? Possibly.
You get well soon, and looking forward to seeing you in person in the United States sometime soon. Thank you so much, Lou Elizondo.
My honor and privilege. Take care, Ross. Thank you.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
If any, of the images that have been released today, or of any of the documentation, is the most profoundly interesting imagery?
Well, number one, there's a number of jellyfish, the Class 7 jellyfish UAP, one of my favorite ones for some silly reason. But seeing that one out there and captured and presented like that multiple times, I found that really fascinating. But also,
so we're talking here about video PR29 or video PR28.
There was two of them that I think yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why do you say they're jellyfish? Because frankly, looking at them myself, they look just kind of like blobs. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah, so it almost looks like a balloon, right? Of course, it's the balloon theory over and over again. But when you compare what the Skywatcher team had developed or recorded over time, multiple times, and what they've published, you can see it matches that shape and kind of velocity. I've recorded them myself as well. And, when you see them, initially they look like a balloon, but then when you go back and you do the analysis of what's going on in the entire situation with the observation, you'll see that they're moving parallel to the wind, they're moving against the wind, they'll be moving faster than the wind. So there's a lot of factors that play into this that tell you, once you've done the actual digging, that there's something far more different than just a balloon up there.
So these two images appear to show something with kind of like a dangle below a kind of an orb-shaped object. Is that why it's called a jellyfish? Because essentially it looks like it's got tentacles dangling down below it?
Yes, that's exactly why. You'll see in a number of videos that are online that you can find even on my feed, where there'll be detail in those tentacles. It's not just a string that hangs down. You'll see that there's different nodules on there, or it's just there's detail there that's just usually not on a string that's hanging off the end of a balloon.
So what could it be? I mean, is there any prosaic explanation that you can think of for an object that's moving against the wind? So it's not a balloon, it's not a static object that's moving with the wind. It doesn't appear to have any visible means of propulsion. It's just a blob with something hanging down below it. Is there a prosaic explanation?
Well, I think there's two theories right now on that, and one of them is it's biological, right? It's actually a life form that's floating around in our atmosphere, and it's just living its life up there doing what it's doing, and maybe the tentacle is part of its feeding apparatus, right, as it pulls the different animals or whatever that's in our atmosphere, because we know it's filled with life. The other one is it's either mechanical or biomechanical, and it could be like an ISR device where it's out there actually doing reconnaissance and trying to do signal intelligence and seeing what's going on in an area that may be hot at the time. It's inconclusive right now, but those are the two working theories that at least I have.
Now, there's another one. I think you've referred to this, I notice, on your ProPixel Twitter X feed as a tesseract. That's video PR26. What is a tesseract, and why do you think this object is a tesseract?
What alien is that?
This is the Class 10.
Hey, they already came. They dropped off the Norch. They told us, like, look, dog, we're going to come back with some beats and shit. We're going to fucking come back with the fire. You know what I'm saying?
The tesseract. It is a really unusual object, and it's been seen really infrequently. I haven't really seen this from many of the folks that have actually sent me videos from the civil side of the house. It's something that James Fowler actually discovered early on in his work, and he shared with me a number of images and some video of the object itself.
James Fowler, for our audience,
it looks like when you see it.
James is one of the principals, or previously one of the principals of Skywatcher.
I'm sorry, the signal cut out there, Ross.
My apologies. I was just explaining to our audience that James Fowler was one of the principals of Skywatcher, who did a lot of the early research to identify the different classes of UAP, among them the tesseract and the jellyfish that we've talked about so far.
Yes. So what he shared with me was prior to Skywatch. And you could see really good detail in the actual object itself. It looks like a cube, a perfect cube with cubes on the points of the larger cube that's in the center. And when you see the object in flight, it looks like there's actually plasma moving through the channels, and it cycles through different colors. You'll see magenta, green, red, blue, and aqua. And in the initial video of that one, the one video that we're just talking about, it shows that what looks like the system is a fused system. So it may be a video that has spectral color in it. So it's got the optical and the mid-wave infrared. And when I looked at it, you can see there's actually colors and actually a little bit of detail in the image that match what we see with the tesseract. So that's just one piece of data that we have that makes it look like it could be that.
So one of the most intriguing objects, and I initially got very excited until I started hearing some of the quite plausible debunks, was PR38, the cruciform, the 8-pointed star object. Let's have a look at this, and then can you please give me your take on what this might be?
Yeah, so it's clearly a very hot object. So you can see behind it, it leaves a trail. And these optical systems, that they're designed to not have that happen. The military side of the house, they use cooled systems. So what that does is it makes sure that any thermal energy that the sensor receives through the lens gets sucked out of the sensor, so you don't have these effects where you can see trails and other blooming and all these other kinds of things that are unwanted. So the fact that this is leaving trails is saying that this is a very highly energetic object. Its temperature that it's outputting is far greater than the background noise or the background temperature. So there's a major delta in the temperature. And that's why we're seeing this trail. Now, if you take a regular uncooled thermal sensor, and if you pass by the sun with it, you'll see that it does exactly the same thing. So you'll see a trail that's exactly the size of the sun that's get left behind. So for here, the idea is when you look at the trail, it's actually showing you what the size of the object is. So this is more likely something like the size of an egg or a Tic Tac, like the other videos that we see where they're just round objects moving through the scene that's just really hot, and so hot that it's actually oversaturating the sensor with photons and thermal energy, which then once you go beyond a certain threshold, then everything kind of gets thrown out. And the optics are, playing games with how to manage, and the electronics are trying to figure out how to even read and identify exactly what kind of information it's getting from the sensor that's going to write to the file that's the recording. So there's a lot going on with this one. Really interesting. I don't believe that the actual star is the shape of the object. I think that's an artifact of the lens or the sensor or both.
So I think the debunkers have used the term diffraction spike. They suggest that these starburst patterns are optical artifacts caused by light bending around inside the internal structure of a telescope or a lens. That's a plausible explanation to you?
Yeah, it is plausible. If you point your camera, like you take your iPhone and you point it at the sun during the middle of the day, it's not going to look like a perfect circle. It has like a starburst effect to it. So it's just how the optics handles all of the photons and how the sensor reads all the photons that the optics have handled. So it's complicated. So a camera is just not one system. It's a system of systems. You have the lens, you have the sensor, you have the electronics inside that's reading what the sensor's saying, that's interpreting what the sensor is actually putting out. So it's not like the old school film cameras where you take a picture and it snaps and sucks in the photons and that's what you got. There are way more layers to this that have to deal with processing.
But we're still talking here about an extraordinarily bright heat emitting object. What could that object be? Could it be explained as, say, maybe an aircraft light on approach to an airport, or maybe some kind of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of any other explanation. Is there a prosaic explanation for how bright that object could be?
So I don't think we can get there with a light. Most lights are now LED, and even if it was halogen, it would not be throwing out enough heat to be able to actually blow out a near infrared or mid-wave infrared sensor, or even long-wave infrared sensor. You could be looking at the back end of a rocket, possibly leaving, just going directly away from where the camera system is.
But that's the kind of heat we're talking about here. It's extreme heat. It's not.
It's extremely hot. Yeah.
It's not just an aircraft light or a very bright light on a tower or something like that. This is
Correct.
Something that's extremely hot.
Yeah, and these systems are designed to see things like that. So they're designed to see the back end of a rocket going. So and identify it. Right. That's all part of it. That's why these systems exist. So you can see and identify. So if it's doing that, then you're not going to be able to identify that. So in my mind, this actually is creating more heat than the system designer designed it to actually see, unless the operator was operating it out of spec, which it doesn't appear to be because the background is properly exposed from a sensor readout standpoint.
So the real object behind this cruciform 8-pointed star object is not what the camera is suggesting it to be. It's something else. We just don't know what it is, and it might be anomalous. We just don't know enough at this stage to know for sure.
Yes, yeah. The trail that's left behind is a really good indicator of how big the object is that's in the center of that star. It really is what I think is the best piece of data that we have for that.
Now, a lot of the objects that we see in these released videos they're kind of blobs. You know, you don't see any shape in them. One of them is a good example is PR37, and it's an object from the Middle East in 2020. It's an object just moving very fast across screen. Is there any plausible explanation you can think of for what these might be? Could these be drones?
Well, I've seen these things a lot flying over.
Look how fast this thing was moving.
One of them is a good example is PR37, and it's an object from the Middle East in 2020.
Right here.
It's an object just moving very fast across screen. Is there any plausible explanation you can think of for what these might be? Could these be drones?
Well, I've seen these things a lot flying over South Jersey. I could tell you that for sure. And they come in multiple different types, where they're a tic-tac shape, they're egg-shaped, or they're just a perfect sphere. Some of them are transparent, some of them are not transparent. They go from transparent to being physical objects like that. It's really hard to say, right? It seems to be like a class in and of itself, where we just have a circular style of UAP that's just flying through the air and doing something. Just don't really know what it's doing.
Okay, another good example of this, and this one's interesting because it does appear to display at least one of the 5 observables, instantaneous maneuvers, right-angled turns. And this is PR34, Greece, from October 2023. And witnesses say, what you're looking at here is an object flying very near the ocean's surface. It actually seems to have a tail on it. I'm wondering if it's another one of your jellyfish. And it's executing multiple 90-degree turns at what is estimated to be roughly 80 miles an hour. You got any take on this?
Well, it could be just like the other object we saw. So I've seen circular objects and many videos of circular objects, or just spherical objects flying, that just do this, right? They do right-handed turns, 90-degree turns, 180-degree, change direction immediately, and even get to the point where they flash 2 times and then they just shoot off and disappear within an instant. So the characteristics that these things, the flight characteristics of them, are just beyond what we could ever imagine.
And then we come to what I'm calling the orange blob, PR31. And this is a series of imagery, but PR31's the most interesting. And you see an orange blob over a building in Syria from October of 2024. There are 3 camera angles of the same incident. One angle features an unusual orangish effect on the camera that the report attributes to a white ball of light, and there's another showing a halo from the light itself. Can you think of any explanation as to why it would manifest as orange on the imaging equipment used by the military in this kind of surveillance?
Not knowing the system that's in use, it's hard to say. They could have some sort of false color that would indicate distance. Not really sure, or speed. It all depends on the system and how the operator has it set to really see it. Some of them will do, like I said in the one of the prior ones, they'll fuse together color and the infrared sensors, so you can see some color, and it just all comes down to how the operator wants the display to show the information that you're looking at, really.
But is it possible that the orange blob is some artifact caused by the imaging systems inside the actual camera lens?
Well, if it was seen by multiple cameras, then most likely not. But yeah, there's always the possibility that there's an artifact within the camera system itself that is seeing that. If somebody shot a laser at it from an off angle, it could be from that, right? There's all kinds of different ways that a sensor can get signaled. So, you have to consider that when you're looking at these videos.
There's another cool one, PR 29, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, in June of 2024. And if you look closely, you can see an orb just above the ocean. And I don't know whether it's a tail or it's a reflection on the water, but it's a strange looking object moving just across the water's surface. Got any take on that?
That is a classic Class 7 jellyfish. I've seen probably 1,000 of these videos submitted to me from people all over the world. Usually they're shown from below. This one's obviously shown from an aircraft, so it's from above. But this is a very typical look and flight characteristic that I've seen many, many, many times.
So what are these jellyfish? I mean, we use the term jellyfish, which implies some kind of biological object, but do we really have any idea?
Well, the two working theories now, at least for me, is that it is a biological object. It's just something that's alive in our atmosphere, or could be an ISR platform, right? Something that is deployed and it's out collecting information, collecting whatever it's going after, right? These things, they seem to show up all over the planet. I haven't seen anywhere that I haven't. I'm getting videos from all over the planet with these things. So they're not isolated to the United States. They're not isolated to Europe. They're coming from everywhere. So this is a worldwide phenomenon.
So what do we make of all of this? Are we to assume that there are prosaic explanations likely for all of them, or do you think that there is genuine anomalousness displayed within these imageries?
I think when you look at the totality of it, right, there's too many similarities between what was just released by the government that align with what the Skywatcher group has discovered and published, along with just the sheer volume of videos that I get from citizens all around the planet, that these objects, they exist, they're real, they're flying around us. We don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're definitely doing it. That's probably the best way I could say it. Yeah. They show up in interesting places from time to time. In war zones, obviously, we hear about them being around there. So there does seem to be some sort of intelligence wrapped around it, that they have decision making as far as where they're going, and they must be doing something there that they're deciding to do based on whatever the environment is that they're entering into.
And crucially, Billy, from what you've seen of these jellyfish and tesseract objects, do you believe that they are intelligently controlled? Are they showing intelligence in how they maneuver?
I can say that several classes that I've seen and personally recorded, they definitely have intelligence to it. They are showing intelligent decision making and course correction after I've started observing them. So they would be heading in one direction, and then in just an instant they would change course and go somewhere else because there was either another UAP in the area, or maybe there was an aircraft nearby. You see them interacting with the environment, so they are making decisions. So to me, that's intelligence.
And just a heads up to our audience, we're going to have Billy on in a week or so again on Reality Check for a full program where he takes us through this evidence he's talking about. I've done a preliminary interview with Billy about it, and it's very exciting. He's got
this is pretty crazy. I think it's interesting to talk about, and the ramifications it would have to our society. And it's so crazy, the future we live in, because every day it's literally World War III, AI essentially becoming super intelligent, taking over, or now aliens. And it's like, man, what a future world. Wow, what a world. What do you guys think? Yeah, it's surreal. It doesn't seem like we're talking about our, again, that's why it's like, this has to be a simulation. Dog. There's no way this could be base reality. But of course it could be, It absolutely could be. And we are just experiencing this, potential sequence of events that somebody is simulating. Don't forget to follow us on Kickstarter. It is pretty wild. No Star Citizen tomorrow, even though I'm gonna be working on Star Citizen. I've been working on the new Manifest app. It's fucking sick, dog. Manifest is, it's not gonna be called Manifest anymore. Well, I'll at least get to show off this real quick. Oh, that's not it. Yeah, there we go. Second. Hey, you know what? I get it, man. I say be as skeptical as you need to be, because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I get that. But let me show you this before I get out of here. But basically, we'll be able to have our messages here, schedule here, radio here, our audio to mix that there, people in the fleet there, their objectives, and you can move these around too, which I love. So it's like if I want to move this around and just be like, okay, I need that there, I need that there, I want to probably put that there, have this over here, have the check-ins down here, right? So you can resize if you want to. Like I have often had this resized, although I think I still need to do some stuff with that because there's something wrong with that. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. But yeah, got our objectives, your check-ins list right here. So we'll be able to basically create a check-in, and then you're able to monitor it there. Yeah, I love having that audio mixer because it's like, man, there are things that as soon as I hear it, I need to turn it off, or turn it down. Like if I need to do a red alert, I wonder if you guys will hear this. You guys can't hear that. Nope. But if I did that.
From Captain Gray.
Let's see. Let me try it again. Can you guys hear that?
From Captain Gray.
Although it might be giving me double signal. Oh, that's dope. Damn, I wonder how loud this is gonna be. Nope.
From Captain Gray.
Dope. Of course, I'm not including any message, but I could do something like, I wonder if there's already a preset for second edition art. Nope.
From Captain Gray, set condition Norch. All hands.
Yeah, that's gonna be nice. That's gonna be sick. Yeah, I'm loving this. So that's cool. Been working on that for a little bit, just in my off time. Clear these quick. Yeah, love the little scheduler over here. Yeah, so anyway, just working on that. Trying to put the final polishing touches on Majesty, which is it's going pretty well, but there's just one little thing I just trying to iron out, and I'm getting there. Every day I get a little bit closer, but alas. Yeah, neither do I, so I'll be around too. You know what I mean? Mother's Day always kind of is shitty for me, so I always try to find a way to distract myself, but the fleet's off, and that's awesome. And so I can work on, you want to help me test your check-in module, then we can do that. But I am going to be working on sort of fleet paperwork, get ready for next week as fighting season officially begins for us next week. So that's going to be cool. You can create saves for layout and size. Oh yeah, that's built in. I didn't show that, but yeah. No, I have that. Yeah, the idea of customizing this, I really want people to feel like they can. I want there to be a marketplace of just customizable versions of this. So, yep. Peace, everybody. I'm out of here too.